I was born a white male in America. So I won the genetic lottery, the luck factor. So I got many advantages from those things. If they make it all about their circumstances, the likelihood that they become a victim of those circumstances goes way up, unless they get really lucky.
It's an unfortunate word to use, but it's true. Kind of a victim mentality, and instead we need to have more of that ownership mentality. Like it's your path, your destiny, you shape, you create.
Giant statement, Jacob. I could not agree with you more. Victim is a very tough word, and we acknowledge it, but we just couldn't find a better one.
I love that, because it also means that I think we as individuals need to have a little bit more accountability, and not just say, oh, my leader doesn't do anything to motivate me, my company. It's like, you got to have some accountability over your own life and your own career, and seeking the experiences and the path that you want, and not assuming that somebody's just going to come along and take care of everything for you.
That's a giant statement, Jacob. I could not agree with you more.
Yeah.
We have a little section in the book because it's the difference between being accountable and being a victim.
Yeah.
And victim is a very tough word, and we acknowledge it, but we just couldn't find a better one. People who do not lean into their own DNA and how they got there, right? If they make it all about their circumstances, the likelihood that they become a victim of those circumstances goes way up, unless they get really lucky. But when we choose to own our part of why we're there, like again, I'm going to go, there are people that are born into very different circumstances. I mean, I won the lottery. I was born a white male in America. So I won the genetic lottery, the luck factor. So I got many advantages from those things.
Do you want to hear something really crazy? 96% of the people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll literally take you 1 second, and you'll get notified when more videos just like this one are available. Now, let's get back to the content.
But when I look up and I'm unhappy, my first job is to ask, how did I contribute to the situation I'm in? Because I can control what I do. I can control my attitude about what I do. If you're my boss and I'm like, God, I'm miserable in this relationship, I can't control how you treat me. I can control how I communicate with you, how I let you know how I feel about how you work with me. But I want, the accountability is really about trying to give people agency. And it's very easy in our world to look up and feel like you're just adrift.
Yeah.
So accountability to me is all about, what's my agency here? How can I be accountable so that I can have some control? And if I feel like I have control, I'll do something. And if I do something, I have a chance to get out of these circumstances. Does that make sense? I hate that word victim. And I know that like I said, some people are truly disadvantaged. How do we help people find their agency through accountability?
No, I love that. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I couldn't agree more, because I feel like I've talked to a lot of people sometimes that have, like you said, it's an unfortunate word to use, but it's true, kind of a victim mentality. And instead we need to have more of that ownership mentality. Like it's your path, your destiny, you shape, you create. I mean, I come from an immigrant family. They came from the Republic of Georgia. They had no money. They didn't speak the language. They could have just easily said, well, you know what? We have nothing. We're going to create nothing. We're going to live in poverty in the United States. But they didn't have that victim mentality. They had the mentality of work hard, create the life that we want, look for opportunities. I mean, my dad had to learn to speak English by watching the Johnny Carson show with a Russian to English translation dictionary. So,
awesome.
So, I come from that mentality very much. And even when I was growing up, my dad would always say, don't be a victim. Nobody cares about your problems, except for family, of course. But it's like, you need to shape your path. And I love that approach. I mean, it's kind of like a tough love thing, but I think it's necessary for a lot of people to hear.
And I just like, as long as we acknowledge that, like your folks, some people do start out at a distinct disadvantage. What we're looking for is, where do you still have control? Where do you still have the ability to change your future? Because it's so much better to wake up in the morning and know that you have the ability to impact your life than to feel like you're just a victim of it. And how do we get to that frame of mind? And as long as we acknowledge that different people have different starting places, I think we're okay there. And we're just like, let's give people agency. One of the tougher questions that Gary will ask me, he's my accountability partner. Maybe I had a really bad interaction with a employee. And he's very common for him, or my coach. I also have a coach to say, Jay, what's your DNA in that? Let's just start there. I get the circumstances. I'm sympathetic. It sucks that that happened. Let's talk a little bit about your DNA in this. And it's very uncomfortable. And I'll just be frank, it pisses me off sometimes. I'm like, yeah, but that person did this to me. Yes.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you did to contribute to how that happened? And sometimes it's like, I'm just standing there and the asteroid hit me. And he's like, well, should you stand under an awning next time? And I'm like, yes, but come on, give me a break. Like sometimes it is bad luck, but it's a powerful question because sometimes you realize I'm enabling people. Maybe I am enabling people. And then one of the reasons that people take advantage of me is I'm trusting to the point of naivete, and I should exercise a little healthy skepticism and inspect a little bit more before I jump into things. Yep. And like trust is not a dirty word. Someone took advantage of you, but the ownership you can take in that is, you know what? I should have asked, I need to take this contract home and read it. And I may need to get someone to review it with me before I sign it, but I'm really excited about this opportunity. And then you go do your due diligence. But like there's always that moment you can ask that question. And what you get, I think, is this feeling of agency and control over your life. That's the gift it gives you.
I like that. Okay, so we mentioned that one of the concepts from the one thing isn't that you only pick one thing. I mean, you do many things, but it's kind of like you prioritize one thing. Like that's kind of where your North Star is, so to speak. And you mentioned that there are 4 pitfalls that people might experience when living the one thing. And I'm also very excited to talk about this because, as you mentioned earlier, this isn't something you talk about in the book or something you've shared in other podcasts. So where do people stumble when they try to make that one thing a reality?
Well, there's kind of a flow here, and this has been fun. This is in my training and consulting with people trying to live it, my employees, other businesses that we work with, right? We go through this path, and I think the first thing people have is they have a goal, but they lack clarity about exactly what it is they want. So I think the first pitfall, and they all build on each other, is a lack of clarity. And there's a local entrepreneur named Keith Cunningham. If you've never had him on your show, you should, because he is absolutely amazing. He's written one of my favorite books, The Road Less Stupid, but he asks great questions.
I love that title.
Yeah, and he's funny. And anyway, so he says generality kills clarity. And so what we have to do is be very specific. So when you say, I would like to do X, let's really define what the finish line looks like and why it's important. So clarity often gives us clues into what we need to do to achieve where we need to go. Generalities don't do it. So like people will say, hey, I want to look great for a swimsuit season. Okay, that's actually probably a grab bag of dieting and physical fitness goals and shopping for an appropriate bathing suit for your body type. Like I could break that down into you need to shop differently, you need to prepare your food differently, you need to eat differently, you need to sleep differently, you need to drink more water, and you need to exercise. And you can't do all of those things at once. You would have to break it down, right? You would have to say, well, of all of those things, what would be my first priority if I wanted to? So you want to get really clear about what it is you're trying to achieve, because that helps you avoid this overload, and where people start off with a New Year's resolution that's actually fabulously unrealistic if you broke it down into goals.
Yeah.
Number 2 is they're actually really clear about what it is they want, but they don't have any sense of focus in their approach to get it. Now we're getting right into the one thing. I know what the thing is, my goal. I'm going to use the tools in the one thing. Now, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier and necessary? I need to look at all the activities that I could do and ask, what is the real driver that I need to be focused on that will get me what I want? Does that make sense?
It does.
Cool.
Yes.
So the first one's a lack of clarity. The second one is a lack of focus in their approach if they were clear. So if they were clear and they were focused, I think then the next trap is they don't actually have any free time to execute. They've said yes to so many other things, they can't say yes to this new thing. And I see this a lot with employees. Like we have a new initiative. We're going to launch X, Y, Z, right? And I say, who wants to be on that team? And you see the eager ones raise their hand. And I sometimes see it's the same people that always raise their hand. And I might just pull them aside and say, Jacob, I love that you want to do this. When are you going to do it? And then you see the panic, right? They've committed to something without actually having any bandwidth to do it. And I got to tell you, we do it to ourselves all the time.
I was going to say in our personal lives, I know lots of people who commit to things, play dates and dinners and stuff like that. And then the day comes where, those things actually need to happen. And it's just end up bailing on everybody. Oh. Sorry, I couldn't. And it happens all the time. And in my mind, I'm like, why are you committing to things? If you just think about it before you commit to it, it'll make everybody's life so much easier. So
we could teach a whole class on that, I'm sure, right? There's so many techniques to buy yourself time, to use a schedule, to use other tools to make sure if I'm going to make a commitment, that's one of the number one reasons I say no. Like you want me to co-author a book with you. And I'd be like, you know what? I would love to do that. I think it's a great idea, but I already have existing commitments that I've made commitments on and have made commitments with other people on. And if I were to take this on too, I would be doing someone an injustice, right? They would be getting half of my focus when they should be getting all of my focus. Or my family could be the one that suffers. I've overcommitted myself professionally. And now instead of watching whatever the latest show is, my wife and I are actually between shows. So I don't have one to bring up to right now, but like The Office or whatever with my wife, after our kids go to bed, I'm working on my laptop at 9:00, right? So they're in order. You want clarity. If you have clarity, you need to be focused in your approach. Like, what do I need to do? And then you need to look up and say, do I have time on my calendar? So much of our process is, what are my goals and what does my time look like? And if I block the time to do the things I need to do, I usually feel like I'm on track. You know what? I said I was going to write 1 chapter this week. I'm going to look at my calendar and go, how many hours do I have blocked to do that activity? And at this point in my career, I kind of know how many hours it might take. And I'm going, you know what? I think I can get that done. If I don't, I'm going to start canceling on people to get that time I need for my number one. And so you get to the last one. You have your clarity. I'm trying to build the thing. You're clear about what it is you want. You're clear about what you have to do to get it. You've got time on your calendar, but then you leave that time unprotected is the last one. And this is where we don't have a process for saying no. We don't have a process for guiding people around our principles. And the operating hypothesis we used for the one thing that we've been living is you do your one thing in the morning. Those hours where we tend to have the most willpower. It's easier to say yes because we have energy. There's fewer distractions earlier in the morning than there are late in the day. And it's also great, like at noon, if you did your number one thing, you're like, hooray, I'm getting a cheeseburger to celebrate, right? It's not hanging over your head. You're not going home knowing that your number one priority is still undone. So you knock it out early. And then a lot of your unstructured time is in the afternoon. And so a lot of that is just about protecting it with scripts.